Hey guys, and welcome back to
MegaJordinary.
And it's
Spooky season.
So this is now video number 4, I think. 4? Yeah, video number 4. And this case that we're going to do today is really crazy, and honestly it's one of my biggest fears because it's just so, like, no one can stop it happening if it's going to happen.
So today's case is the spontaneous human combustion of Mary Reeser. So spontaneous combustion is a type of combustion which occurs by self-heating, followed by thermal runaway and auto-ignition.
So basically it's very like scientific, but a chemical reaction in your body overheats and ignites, so you basically, your body sets itself on fire. So we are going to be discussing Mary Reeser's case, but some details people may find disturbing, so just be wary of that before proceeding to watch this video.
But we will add a trigger warning on screen before all the graphic parts.
Yeah. So Mary Hardy Reeser was a 67-year-old woman who was originally from Pennsylvania but had moved to the St. Petersburg area of Florida when she met her husband, Dr. Richard Reeser. There's not a lot about her personal life other than that herself and her husband had one surviving son called Richard Reeser also.
So on the 1st of July 1951, Mary's son Richard Reeser Jr. had been visiting his mother. He had been there for a couple of hours and decided to leave around 9 p.m. When Richard Jr. left his mother's house, Mary had said to him that she was going to have a cigarette in her favourite armchair that she always sat in, and then she said she was going to head to bed.
It was a pretty normal night. This was kind of the norm routine. She always liked to have a cigarette before she went to bed in her favourite armchair. So Richard just assumed that, like every other night, she'd have a cigarette and she'd be off to her room to sleep for the night.
So the next morning, Mary Reeser's landlady had a telegram to deliver to Mary, which was the normal means of contact back then.
So when she arrived at Mary Reeser, she noticed that when she put her hand on the handle of the door, it was extremely hot, and she could hear like crackling coming from inside the apartment. So she immediately got the fire brigade involved, and the firefighters went to Mary's apartment. They broke the door in, and when the firefighters burst into the apartment, it was filled with smoke and soot. So they believed that a major fire had happened there.
So the firefighters found evidence of extreme heat, but although there was evidence of a fire, when the firefighters entered the property, there was no sign of Mary anywhere.
The firefighters realised pretty quickly that Mary's remains were largely ashes now on the armchair that she frequented. The only parts of Mary remaining were her left foot, which was still in her slipper, and the firefighter said that Mary's skull had shrunk enormously in size.
So experts say that it takes up to 3 to 4 hours of constant burning at 2,500 degrees to achieve the level of cremation that Mary Reeser's body suffered. Another thing that baffled firefighters and police was that Mary's apartment was pretty much damage free, and there was a stack of newspapers beside Mary's chair, and they were literally untouched.
There was said to be some plastic cutlery near enough to Mary and the chair, but they were just slightly heat damaged, as in they were kind of softened and bent, but that was about it. Other than, you know, the door handle of the house being hot and, you know, the smoke on the ceilings and minute kind of stuff that would indicate, you know, a fire, the rest of the house was totally fine, and the chair was fine as well. So because of this strange, unexplainable death, Mary's death was put down to spontaneous human combustion. However, they did get the FBI involved, and after the FBI had analysed what was left of Mary's body, they concluded that Mary didn't spontaneously combust. And they said that Mary most probably was smoking her cigarette and fell asleep, and Mary's body fat acted like a fuel for the fire, and that caused Mary to set herself alight.
A professor from Pennsylvania called Dr. Wilton M. Krogman did not accept the FBI's conclusion whatsoever. He was a very experienced fire researcher, and like we said, he said that if this was the case, that Mary's whole apartment would have been up in flames.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, there are many theories around Mary's death. Some people say that it was possibly a lightning strike.
However, there was no evidence of any entry point of a bolt of lightning. So that theory is just crazy. Although the whole thing is crazy, but that just seems exceptionally crazy because there's no entry point of a bolt of lightning.
And then on the other hand, you have some people claiming that they seen a ball of fire come through the window and hit Mary.
And they said the window was open, but there's no evidence to confirm or deny whether the window was open. It's just all crazy. They actually dubbed Mary Reeser the Cinder Woman in the local newspapers.
So now it's been over 70 years since Mary Reeser's death, and unfortunately there are still no clean-cut answers to this day. Though the FBI believes that this was down to Mary's cigarette, it's still widely believed to this day that Mary Reeser suffered spontaneous human combustion.
In Ireland, back in 2010, a case similar to Mary Reeser's actually occurred. 76-year-old Michael Flaherty, who lived on his own in Galway, Ireland, was found in his living room in a chair, his body completely charred.
There was no foul play involved in Michael's death, but there was a fire burning next to Michael in his fireplace, which was completely contained, and the only parts of Michael's property that were, say, burned was the ceiling above his body and the floor beneath his feet.
And when forensic done tests on Michael and on the fire, they said that the fire in the fireplace was not the same kind of fire that burned Michael, and there was no accelerant used. So medical examiner Kieran McLaughlin said in 2011 that this fire was thoroughly investigated and that he was left with the conclusion that Michael's death fits into the category of spontaneous human combustion for which there is no adequate explanation. And he also said that in his 25 years of being a medical examiner, he has never witnessed anything like Michael's death. Spontaneous combustion was actually mentioned in the Bible and in some of Charles Dickens' works. And apparently there's been more than 200 cases of spontaneous combustion over the last 300 years.
So do you believe that spontaneous human combustion is real, and that it could have caused these deaths that we spoke about in today's video? Or what other explanations do you have? Let us know down below in the comments. Hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the little bell notification to be notified for all spooky season videos and every other video going forward. So if you liked today's video, please give it a big thumbs up. We look forward to seeing you in the next spooky season video.
Bye!